Have you ever known exactly what you should be doing, yet still found yourself doing something else? You know you should be doing better, yet somehow the same thoughts keep appearing, same emotions keep arising, the same behaviours keep inhibiting you. Most people assume the problem is a lack of willpower. Napoleon Hill would disagree. David, William, Pierce, welcome back. And this video explores chapter 3 of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is on the topic of autosuggestion. And the deeper I study this book alongside classical Tantra, the more I find the same truths being expressed through different language. Hill calls this autosuggestion. Joe Dispenza talks about conditioning the subconscious mind. Tony Robbins about state, meaning, and identity. And Tantra speaks about samskaras and the conditioning of consciousness itself. All different language pointing to the same recognition. Your life tends to move in the direction of the thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that you repeatedly energize. Where attention goes, energy flows. One of Hill's most important observations in this chapter is that no thought enters the subconscious mind without first passing through what he calls the principle of autosuggestion. In simple terms, the thoughts you repeatedly think eventually become the instructions to your subconscious mind, from which they begin to operate from. Most people assume they're victims of their thinking, but Hill suggests something different, that we are constantly programming ourselves, whether we're conscious to it or not. The question is not whether you're influencing your subconscious mind. You are. The question is whether you're doing it with intentionality. Hill says the conscious mind acts like a gatekeeper. Every experience, every thought, every impression arrives through the senses and passes through conscious awareness before reaching the subconscious mind. Tantra says something quite similar. It teaches that consciousness becomes conditioned through repeated impressions, and these impressions become samskaras, the grooves within consciousness that shape how we perceive reality. And over time, those grooves stop feeling like conditioning and start feeling like truth, or at least they do through our perception. And this is where most people get trapped. They think they are responding to reality, but often they're responding to their conditioning. The person who expects rejection sees rejection everywhere. The person who expects success notices opportunities everywhere. And the person who believes they're not enough unconsciously interprets life through that lens. Reality has not changed. It's simply the conditioning, the flavor of reality that you're ascribing to it. Hill repeatedly emphasizes something that many people miss. The subconscious mind does not respond strongly to words. It responds to emotionally charged thoughts. Thoughts mixed with feeling, mixed with belief, mixed with faith. This is one of the reasons affirmation practices fail for so many people. They repeat words that they don't believe. They're not charged with emotion. The subconscious doesn't respond to that sentence. It responds to the emotional state behind the sentence. And Joe Dispenza speaks into this as well with his teachings. He often says that thoughts are the language of the mind, whilst emotions are the language of the body. And Hill is pointing towards the same thing, which Tantra also points to. Consciousness is shaped not simply by what you think, but by what you repeatedly identify with emotionally. In fact, in Tantric teachings, thoughts and feelings are not separate, but are the same layer of consciousness, the heart-mind layer, which means in tantric teaching, you can't have a thought without a feeling or a feeling without a thought. They are inextricably linked. They are intertwined, opposite ends of the same spectrum. Think about the thoughts that you repeat most often. I'm not good enough. This never works. I'm behind. I'm not ready. Whatever it might be for you. Most people never realize that they're practicing these thoughts, rehearsing them. And that every rehearsal strengthens the pattern, especially when it's emotionally charged. And Hill uses a beautiful metaphor. He says the subconscious mind is like fertile soil. If you don't intentionally plant the seeds you want, weeds will grow automatically. Tantra would say the same thing through the concept of samskara. Consciousness naturally takes shape according to what is repeatedly impressed upon it. What you repeatedly energize grows. What you repeatedly identify with becomes your identity. And identity eventually becomes behavior. Dipping the tea bag strengthens the water. So be careful what you dip your mind in. And this is why transformation is rarely about information. Most people already know what they should be doing. The challenge is not information, it's about conditioning. It's that information has yet become conditioning. Knowledge hasn't yet become embodiment. The subconscious is still operating from an older program. And this is a huge part of the work that I do through men's transformational yoga, helping men navigate major life or relationship transitions to rebuild self-trust and clarity and grounded direction, because often the issue isn't a lack of intelligence. It's that old conditioning is still running beneath the surface. Old beliefs, old fears, old identities. And together, with the right support, begin to be able to master your mind, to learn how to identify those patterns, to challenge them, and to consciously replace them with something more aligned with the life that you're desiring to live. So if something in that speaks to you, follow the link in the description for more information. So one of the things Hill emphasizes repeatedly is persistence. Not because repetition is magical, but because repetition is how conditioning happens. Read the vision daily, he says. Feel it, see it, act on inspiration when it appears. Continue until the new pattern becomes more familiar than the old one. This is also why Dispenza talks about becoming familiar with a future self before the future physically manifests. And why Tantra places such importance on practice. Transformation is found through repetition. One of my favorite lines from this chapter is that the subconscious mind acts upon instructions given with absolute faith. Whether or not you agree with this verbiage, this language, the principle is what's important. You eventually become what you repeatedly believe. Not overnight, not instantly, but over time, inevitably. Your dominant thoughts become your persistent emotional states, which then create your identity, which then shapes your life. You do not become what you occasionally think, you become what you repeatedly rehearse. Most people are already autosuggesting. They're just using it against themselves rather than in support. They're rehearsing fear instead of possibility, limitation instead of potential, doubt instead of trust. The question isn't whether you're programming yourself, it's what program you're running. So if you're wanting to transform your life, you can. It's learning how that's important. So here's a contemplation to consider. What thought are you repeatedly emotionally energizing? What story are you rehearsing most often? And if your subconscious mind were treating that thought as an instruction, what kind of future would it be creating? Hill believed that through autosuggestion, faith and persistence, a person could become the master of their own destiny. And Tantra ultimately points towards the same recognition, as does Joe Dispenza and Tony Robbins. It's not that you control everything, but that you can become conscious of the forces shaping your experience and begin actively participating in them with conscious intentionality. So if you'd like to go deeper into this chapter, spend some time with the contemplation and notice what thoughts you're rehearsing most often. Because the life you're living tomorrow is likely being practiced in your heart-mind today. And if you're ready to reclaim your attention, ready to rebuild self-trust and master your masculine energy, just comment "edge" in this video or send me a message on Instagram and we can start a conversation. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next transmission. Cheers.